The Year to There podcast, it's time to start the show. Be sure to hold on tight, here we go. Exploring all the different Disney destinations. Year to There, it's time to start the fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Year to There podcast's Walt Disney World Word of the Week. I am your host, Phil Gramlich, and each and every week I will bring you a different Walt Disney World word. And then I'll give you history, tips, background, information, all kinds of things about that Walt Disney World word. This week, I changed it up just a little bit, and I posted on Facebook asking for people to give me their best T word for the Word of the Week podcast. And I did choose one of those, so thank you so much to Jackie Sickman and to Lisa Marie for your suggestion. So without further ado, this week's Walt Disney World Word of the Week is brought to you by the letter T. T for Tomorrowland. Yep, this week I'm going to talk all about that crazy land that's themed around the future that's always had the problem of the present catching up to that land and then Disney having to figure out what the heck to do next. So one cool thing about Tomorrowland is that there is one in every one of the Magic Kingdom style parks around the world. Disneyland's Tomorrowland opened on July 17th, 1955. Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland opened on October 1st, 1971. Tokyo Disneyland's Tomorrowland opened on April 15th, 1983. Disneyland Paris's Tomorrowland opened on April 12th, 1992. Hong Kong Disneyland's opened on September 12th, 2005. And the Tomorrowland in Shanghai Disneyland opened on June 16th, 2016. For this episode of the podcast, though, we're going to focus mainly on Tomorrowland in the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World. Now, I know you're listening to me right now, wherever you are, in your car, at home, on the treadmill. You're being very attentive and you're listening, and I really appreciate it. But if you're like me, somewhere in the back of your head, right now, you still hear the Ear to Their podcast song that you heard a couple minutes ago. Sorry about that. That's pretty catchy. Anyway, back to Tomorrowland. So when Tomorrowland at the Magic Kingdom opened on Magic Kingdom's opening day, of course, just like Disneyland's when it opened in 1955, the Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland was unfinished. As a matter of fact, only 2 attractions were open on that opening day. The Grand Prix Raceway, which would later become a million different things, but it's still there today, and the Skyway to Fantasyland, which sadly is no longer with us. Besides those 2 attractions, there was really literally nothing else to do in Tomorrowland on opening day. There was actually a big, kind of ugly orange wall that was at the back of Tomorrowland right next to the Skyway building that blocked guests from going any further into the land. There was also a big cafeteria-style open-air food court that was kind of supposed to make up for the fact that there was no other food available anywhere else in Tomorrowland. So on opening day, Tomorrowland was flat, it was barren, it was bare, it was empty, it lacked personality, lacked character, and it was basically painted in white from front to back. So fairly quickly after opening day, Walt Disney World started building up their version of Tomorrowland. The largest counter service restaurant in the Magic Kingdom, which would be the Tomorrowland Terrace, opened up later that year. America the Beautiful opened in November. The Flight to the Moon opened in 1971 on Christmas Eve. And the Plaza Pavilion, or the Plaza Pavilion, however you say it, doesn't matter to me, I'm not judging. That opened in 1973, and that's the little transition there between Main Street USA and Tomorrowland. And it's also a pretty easy way to get to Tomorrowland from Main Street USA without fighting the crowds, even to this day. In 1974, the Starjets were added on top of the Wedway People Mover station. Of course, the Starjets are what we now know as the Astro Orbiter. And the following year, on January 15th, 1975, Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress opened in the Magic Kingdom. The only difference being from Disneyland's version was it spun in an opposite direction and had a new song. This song was called The Best Time of Your Life. I would sing a little bit of it, but I think I've sung way too much on the podcast lately. So here's a little clip of that song.
Now is the time, now is the best time, now is the best time of your life. Life is a prize, live every minute, open your eyes and watch how you win it. Yesterday's memories.
And of course, the song eventually was changed back to the much better, sorry for everyone who disagrees with me, Sherman Brothers song, There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. Also opening on January 15th, 1975, was the first ever completely indoor roller coaster, Space Mountain. Yes, the Magic Kingdom Space Mountain does actually predate the Space Mountain out in Disneyland. Then in June of 1975, the Wedway People Mover opened.
Paging Mr. Morrow, Mr. Tom Morrow. Please contact Mr. Johnson in the control tower to confirm your flight to the moon.
Which was the second People Mover that Disney had opened. The first one being, of course, the one that was built in Disneyland. There's one really cool thing that I want to mention that is still on the People Mover till this day. When you go through one of the dark tunnels on the People Mover, on your left-hand side, or on your right-hand side if you're riding backwards, your car will pass by a very small section of Walt Disney's original Progress City model from his experimental prototype Community of Tomorrow, or as we all know it now, Epcot. Now, this model used to be held on the second floor of the Carousel of Progress out in Disneyland. And back then, it wasn't just this small section, it was an enormous, huge scale model. So when Carousel of Progress was taken apart and shipped out to Florida, the Progress City model was taken apart and shipped as well. But only the center section, a small section of that model, was ever reassembled in Florida. So I'd like to imagine that somewhere on Walt Disney World property is this Raiders of the Lost Ark style warehouse. And the Progress City model is in there and marked top secret, do not open. At least I'd like to think so anyway. So guests who would walk over the bridge from the hub into Tomorrowland in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s were greeted by huge pylons, huge white pylons on either side. Behind the pylons were these giant waterfalls that would cascade down these buildings into the trough below. Now you might be saying to yourself, wait, I don't remember these waterfalls. Well, you may not remember them because they were taken out in the early 80s. Because whenever there was any wind at all, the wind would blow the water from the waterfalls onto the guests who were walking across the bridge. So eventually Disney decided it just wasn't worth it to have the waterfalls there, and they were replaced by some light and dark blue murals that were there on the walls until 1994. In 1994, Tomorrowland was given a complete refurbishment, and it was rethemed to the Tomorrow That Never Was. So that's why for the last 20 plus years, it's had that Buck Rogers kind of style to it. But lately, as we see now as I'm recording this, December of 2016, the colors are being changed. The rocks went from a bronzish brown color to a silver color. Things, they are a-changing in Tomorrowland. And of course, over the years, attractions have come and gone. Some favorites have gone the way of the dodo. In 1975, Flight to the Moon became Mission to Mars because, we had already been to the moon at that point. I mean, not me personally. I haven't been to the moon. I was talking about mankind. But hey, maybe you are an astronaut and you have been to the moon. I don't know. You know what? If you are listening and you are an astronaut and you have been to the moon, send me an email to phil@eartotheirtravel.com. I'd love to talk to you about a couple things. Anyway, Flight to the Moon became Mission to Mars, and eventually Mission to Mars made way for the Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter. And Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter eventually became everyone's favorite attraction, Stitch's Great Escape, which is now operating only seasonally in the Magic Kingdom. The 1972 attraction, If You Had Wings, eventually became If You Could Fly, then it became Delta Dream Flight, then Disney's Take Flight, and then it switched over what it is now, Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin. American Journeys became the Timekeeper, which eventually became one of my favorite and most underrated current Magic Kingdom experiences, Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor. I'm always picked to be Mike Wazowski during that show. Listen, it's genetics. I didn't have any hair at like 19 years old. So by 21, I was shaving it off. And ever since that attraction opened, I've been Mike Wazowski. As far as dining goes these days in Tomorrowland, my favorite place to get a cheeseburger in all of the Magic Kingdom right now is Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe. Of course, you get to listen to Sunny Eclipse while you sit and have your sandwich. That's a pretty good time. Also available right now are the Anti-Gravity's Galactic Goodies, Cool Ship, the Lunching Pad at Rocket Tower Plaza, and the seasonal Tomorrowland Terrace Cafe. As for the future of Tomorrowland, well, honestly, who knows? As I said earlier, the land has been getting a makeover of sorts. The paint scheme has been changing around the land lately. There have been rumors that a Wreck-It Ralph attraction may replace the Stitch's Great Escape attraction eventually. One thing I think we can all agree on is that Tomorrowland needs its own identity. These days, it's the one land in the Magic Kingdom that doesn't have a clear identity, right? If it's the future, then why is Monsters, Inc. and Buzz Lightyear there? I'm not quite sure of all these. All I know is that I hope Disney has an answer for it soon. And that is going to do it for this week's Walt Disney World Word of the Week. Thank you so much again to Jackie Sickman and to Lisa Marie for suggesting Tomorrowland, and thank you to everyone else who made suggestions as well. It's not that your suggestions weren't as good, it's just that this one was an easy kind of hit it out of the park for me. Hey, what can I say? I'm all about being honest. If you listen to the podcast, you know that already. And as always, thank you so much for listening each and every week. It really means so much to me that you guys are listening and enjoying the show. So thank you again, really, from the bottom of my heart for listening every week. As long as you guys keep downloading these, I will keep making them. And just remember, there will be a new episode of the Walt Disney World Word of the Week each and every Wednesday morning, as well as a new episode of the Ear to There podcast each and every Monday morning. So until next time, have a great week. Bye-bye.